What is up, my friends? Welcome to my YouTube channel. I appreciate you all for being here. I hope that you can like and subscribe my page. Today, I'm actually going to be talking to Mr. Brian Payne, the CEO himself of Furnished Finder. And today's conversation was so great. I mean, you guys are going to have to check this out. He talks a lot about the future of Furnished Finder, where it's actually heading, where it's going, what they're working on right now in this moment. And there's just so many cool things that are actually happening with Furnished Finder. And Brian actually kind of talks about himself a little bit, which he doesn't really do in very many episodes. So I hope that you guys can take a chance to listen to this or watch this and really get some insight on where Furnished Finder is going. For those of us that are operating right now as short-term rental operators, midterms are really important. We dive into why it's so important to really think about getting into this space as more and more regulations are coming around. There's regulatory risk that is happening all over the place, and this can literally devastate your business. So if you don't start thinking about getting into Furnished Finder or hosting other type of travel folks for more than 30 days at a time, you need to really think about it. I'm going through ordinances right now, and 3% of the world is actually going through ordinances or is already regulated. So check this episode out. Please like, subscribe, hear Mr. Brian Payne talk, and thank you so much. I am super excited because we have the man, the myth, the legend behind Furnished Finder and Keycheck, Mr. Brian Payne. Thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. Jess, as always, happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and you and I were talking offline a second ago, and I was talking to you about the regulatory risks that are involved in the short-term rental space. And I was telling you why my city that I live in now, Modesto, has been regulated. And thankfully, Brian, I found Furnished Finder, years ago, and was able to create, connect with nurses and businesses. And if Brian, didn't have that, and all of a sudden the city just put cease and desist letters out, I would be SOL, man. So, I mean, there's so much happening right now. And I just talked to you about this a second ago. 3%, you guys, of the United States is regulated by there's short-term rental regulations. So right now, more than ever, is really an important time to really think about pivoting into the midterm space, or at least dabbling or dipping your toe into it, kind of feeling what it's like, because these risks are coming, right, Brian? I mean, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, 3% is it's a really low number for the amount of press that it's getting. And regardless, it's affecting real people, hosts from all over. This is their business, right? Could be a side hustle, could be their business like you. I mean, you've got multiple units and you've shifted over, quit your W-2, and you're doing this full time. So, it's real scary to have kind of all your eggs in that STR basket, short-term rental basket, where a city can just say, nope, all of a sudden, hey, give you 90-day notice, 120-day notice, and you got to figure out what you're going to do. So, for us, we looked at that a long time ago, especially we got our first interaction with it was with HOAs. Mm-hmm. So our HOA at the time, when we were landlords renting to travelers coming to our area, this one HOA that we bought, I think it was in outside of Dallas. They said no way, no way, no how. Owner residents only. And if you're planning on doing a short-term rental, we'll fine you daily. And they were just going to make your life, really miserable until they kicked you out. So I'm like, well, if this little regulatory board can have so much control, what would happen if the cities have that control, which obviously that is the case. So midterm rentals was always our kind of sweet spot for sure.
Yeah. And, you bring that up is, HOAs have always been that way. They kind of govern what happens. Unless you're on the board, I've actually seen people.
Yeah, aren't they great?
Yeah. But then again, most of the time, the people that complain are neighbors. It's not even the board themselves. It's the neighbors that complain to the board. But then again, you think about you're hosting nurses, why is that such a big deal? But some people that have been in these HOAs, they really feel like they're a part of them in a lot of ways. They'll complain.
Well, they lump us all together, right? They say, well, a short-term rental is a midterm rental. They don't know the difference. And, companies like Mashvisor now, they're separating categories out, and they're saying, well, here's a traditional rental, 12 months. Here's a short-term rental, Airbnb. Everybody knows what those two are. And they're attaching Furnished Finder to the midterm rental space. So we're, connecting with them, providing all of our data so they can help their real estate investors there. But when it comes down to it, these cities and regulatory boards, they just lump us all together. But you were telling me about your city, Modesto, that is now they're regulating, and they don't really have a good plan. They don't have a plan to execute, and nor to regulate this down the road, to enforce it. So what's your experience been in terms of the length of stay and kind of what they're trying to make you do?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of give you a quick synopsis of it. So everybody that was operating as a short-term rental, if you're listed on Airbnb or VRBO, got a letter in the mail saying if you do not cancel your stays or cancel, you have to pay TOT tax, which we'll talk about that in a second, and mills tax. So automatically they were back paying, everybody has to back pay mills tax and TOT tax if you're short-term rental operating. The minimum amount of stays here is less than 30 days in Modesto, and this is kind of all over the place. Any place that's being regulated, like San Diego is going through huge regulations right now, which I'm probably seeing, you guys are probably seeing an increase in the midterm rentals in San Diego, because you start seeing these big cities have this happening, then people that obviously got used to that short-term rental income want to pivot in one way or another. I don't want to derail from the conversation too much, but so the city right now, Brian, they just don't know what they're doing. I actually just put a YouTube video together about a week ago where I actually went down to the city hall and said, hey, 5 months ago, you guys put these regulations together. What's happening? How do we as operators know? I put together an advocacy group for anybody that is dealing with short-term rental regulations. Think about putting together an advocacy group where you can go and actually talk to the city hall as a group. Because if not, they're not going to pay attention to you. So we put this group together. I'm kind of the spearhead of that, which I don't know why I decided to do that, but I did, to help everybody else out in the space. But I'm also educating everybody, just like you mentioned a second ago, and this is something I've been pushing for a long time, because a lot of these folks in the Airbnb space, yeah, you can make a lot of money doing this or being in this area, but what about regulatory risk? That's going to happen. It's happening now all over the US, and there's regulations that are going to just pop out of nowhere. So, Brian, I think that's where my brain is at, is if you're in this space now, start thinking about the future, start thinking about the next 3 to 6 months to the next 2 to 3 years. Because as we just talked about, if only 3% is regulated right now, I mean, gosh, in the next, 2 years even, I mean, we can look at 2x, 3x that, and then what for people that are in those spaces?
Yeah, it's true. And we've seen it for sure. We have over 135,000 properties on our platform now, and the growth is remarkable. But ultimately, landlords need a defensive strategy,
100%.
Because at some point it feels like short-term rentals are going to be in the crosshairs if they not already are, which I believe they are in so many cities. But you said it's only a small percentage. They're going to start in the larger cities and then kind of grow. But that 30-day mark seems to be the kind of the definition of a short-term rental. Is that kind of what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, so they look at it as in Airbnb actually defined it as 28 days or less. And I just talked to you about this a second ago. So for those of you who don't know, Airbnb's pushing midterm. Brian, so that's your competitor now?
Yeah, I love competing against them. They're incredible, right? Obviously an incredible company. But yeah, competing for that for a third of their business, I'll do that all day long.
Yeah, so just for those of you who don't know, Airbnb had a webinar that was probably about a month ago. And that webinar is to basically say 28% of their income has come from 28 days or more. And we all know that Airbnb IPO'd, which, Brian, maybe you might IPO at some day, but I don't know. That's a question for me to ask you later on. But they IPO'd, so we can see all their figures and their numbers. So it actually shows, if you go and look at all the data, 28% of their income over the last year and a half has come from 28 days or more, which is a midterm space.
Yeah.
Which is tremendous. If you think about the billions that they're making a year.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, truly. I mean, it just seems like more and more landlords are just being, their eyes are open to another strategy other than traditional rentals, which are unfurnished 12 months, short-term rentals, running your property like a hotel. Now there's something right in the middle. It's great for the landlords who are, maybe they don't want to run their place like a hotel in terms of the turnover and the wear and tear. They kind of want, hey, I do want that maybe say 2x bump in rent that you can get with a furnished rental, but it may not be the 3 or 4x that you might see with a vacation rental, but obviously that comes with a lot of turnover, wear and tear, and headache and work as well. And a lot of landlords, they don't have properties to have another job. They have properties to help them towards retirement and things like that. So yeah, it seems to be a sweet spot. And again, like I mentioned, we're going to be kind of announcing our new partnership with Mashvisor really soon. So depending on when you're listening to this going forward, you can go there and really see your kind of cash on cash, cap rate, a type of investment strategy, what you would see in returns as opposed to traditional versus short term and now midterm.
Right. Yeah. And Brian, I've been using Mashvisor for a long time. airDNA was kind of that one agency that everybody always knows. They've talked about it forever. But Mashvisor, in my opinion, it breaks things down. Just like you mentioned, you can see what the cash on cash return rates are. You can see what cap rates are. And now they've integrated Furnished Finder in there. So they're grabbing data from Furnished Finder. Maybe we could talk about that for a second, kind of plug Mashvisor and what they're doing. Because again, I'm a huge advocate for Mashvisor, and I've always been, as everybody that knows and follows me. So I was really excited when I actually saw that happen, Brian. So how does that look like on their end? What type of, are they basically grabbing the numbers based off of like the general search area? So anybody now listening can actually go to furnishedfinder.com and go to stats, and you can actually see how much the average property is making in your market. So are they basically translating those stats into Mashvisor dependent on property?
Yeah, I mean, yes, on a small scale, yeah, they are. And we're providing us all the information that we have in terms of, occupancy rates and things like that, so they can make those calculations. But we're really building up our data. It's one of our, you said, hey, what's new with Furnished Finder? Mm-hmm. And it may not be super exciting to everybody, but for us, it's super exciting. And I think to a lot of landlords, it's going to be really exciting too, because they want to know, more information about the performance of their listing. And we want to know, macro, like what's happening in our platform. We want to measure everything and be able to compare that year over year, month over month, quarter over quarter, things like that. So really kind of this data science is one of the big products that we're going through. But a lot of, once we are able to firm that up, then a lot of that data will make its way into the stats page, which you were talking about. You can find the stats page on the homepage of Furnished Finder and just scroll down a little bit. And you type in your city, and it brings up a lot of information about your area, the demand in your area, because people want to go, well, hey, before I list with you, what type of demand am I going to see? Is it going to be worth it, right? Mm-hmm. So then we'll give you, I think it's kind of 12-month demand in that area based on property types and user types and things like that. And we pipe in a lot of useful data, but it will be... it'll kind of have an injection of steroids once we're finished with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I talked to you back, I don't know, was it 6 months ago when we talked before, and I was saying, Brian, I see so much opportunity in the midterm space. I see so much happening right now. And then, fast forward to 6 months now, it's like all these investors that are typically long-term, now they're looking at Furnished Finder. Now they're looking at actually getting into the midterm space. So I think it's incredibly timely, not only for you as a company, but investors in general, to be able to piggyback off of Furnished Finder to grab data for themselves for free. You guys, you can actually go grab this data for free, and we'll put a link down below to where you actually do that. Yeah. So it's free. You don't got to pay for anything. And then the second part is that you have Mashvisor that now integrates all that data for you to see what you can, project, what you're projected to make. Because obviously as an investor, we need to make sure what that looks like, or if we're going to transition long term into a short term. Long term into a midterm. So it's awesome.
And we'll leave that data over there. So Mashvisor has it, for their real estate investors. And the internal stats page will be a little bit different, but still very useful.
Did you guys have to hire, Brian, like these data software engineers to start pulling this data together, or is it kind of like you guys were kind of operating with this mindset going forward for the future anyway?
Yeah, we did. We met with some companies, and they really focused in on data collection and data science, and we agreed with them. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to really make that a priority in 2022, 2023. So again, really excited about providing that data in maybe quarterly, semi-annual white papers as well, to really just be provide the industry data that is so lacking in the midterm space.
Yeah, and the way I feel about the midterm space, Brian, is with all asset classes, like I feel in the next few years, midterm rentals will become their own asset class. Like I truly feel that, because right now we're seeing, and you might see this already, there's large REIT agencies, REITs, and they're actually listing their properties as midterm rentals. A quarter of their properties, even like San Francisco, Los Angeles, even smaller areas, they're doing that. They've already been on Furnished Finder. They're listing their properties there.
Yeah, they are. It brings up a good point about kind of apartment complexes. We talked about traditional rentals, and it's because our inventory is really different. Like, it's a no booking fee platform, so you're not going to see all those extra booking fees and going, wait, how did my monthly rent get to $4,000? What just happened, right? So, we understand that these travelers are they want to go to direct, and that's what we're all about. Is not adding on fees for the traveler or the landlord. But when it comes to our inventory, yes, obviously midterm rental. Yes, we compete, like you mentioned, with the Airbnb and that the third of their business, right? Mm-hmm. But it's also really unique in that traditional rentals, the 12-month unfurnished. Now you're looking at Furnished Finder inventory. And people are looking at it and going, okay, I could get into this, say, 2-bedroom for, let's say, $2,000, $2,500. And the same unfurnished 2-bedroom is maybe only $300, $400 more, maybe less. So before, it was always kind of like corporate housing was always black boxed, right? It's like, okay, It's only for executives, only for people paying tons of money, and the corporations are paying for it because who can afford that? But our inventory is so unique that we're actually kind of now competing against traditional rentals in the, apartment complex space, to where, people are just going, well, shoot, why do I need to buy all the stuff? Mm-hmm. I've got to buy a couch. I've got to buy a TV. I see behind you a guitar. That's necessary, right? Oh, you got to buy bed, couches, art, whatever. You got to buy all that stuff. And I don't know. It's just, I think a lot of people, they don't need all that stuff, especially when the price points, our inventory is so low in terms of bringing it down for the, compared to a furnished rental compared to a long-term unfurnished rental, that people are choosing the furnished rentals.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And I see that too in my market a lot, where standard rent is, I'm just going to give you an example, $2,000 for a property that has nothing in it. And then you have Furnished Finder, $2,350, water, sewer, garbage, electrical, furnished. I mean, $300. I mean, that's how much it costs to pay for your electrical in a lot of ways. So
exactly. People don't want to put on utilities and go through that whole process of setting up a unit. A lot of people are just looking to move in. It's just lifestyle living, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you guys kind of started off as being geared towards nurses, and now I have insurance companies. That was the whole thing. Just by being listed on Furnished Finder, it opened the door for me to actually connect with an insurance agency. And now that insurance agencies, we're part of their network, and they send us, anytime anybody has been displaced from a fire or flood or something kind of catastrophic that happens, they're now sending those clients to us. And if I wasn't listed on Furnished Finder, I would have never connected with that agency and had that corporate.
Yeah, congrats on that.
Yeah,
that's huge. I mean, I love your approach, and it's more than just filling your units. I've got 10 spaces. I need 10 tenants, right?
Right.
You're looking to make long-term contacts with these companies and organizations that always have a need for what you provide, monthly furnished housing. So another colleague of yours also reached out to us recently and said, hey, guess what Furnished Finder did for me this week? We were able to sign a $250,000 contract.
Wow.
So, I mean, we love being in the center of that. And frankly, I mean, we're a source. We're the probably one of the main sources for tenants.
Oh, for sure.
In the U.S. right now, especially when it comes to midterm rentals. And, a lot of the master lease companies use us. A lot of the mom and pop, We get a lot of Airbnb hosts coming over for a variety of reasons. It could be what we talked about earlier. But yeah, it really does feel like a kind of the sweet spot. And the hosts, they don't have to tuck their tail and run back to 12-month unfurnished.
Right.
If there's a problem with a short-term rental, again, it could be an HOA, could be a city, a municipality of some sort, you don't have to tuck your tail and run. Now you have a strategy where you can leave all the furniture, keep the utilities on, put in a traveling professional for the next 3 months. Sometimes they stay for 6 months, and you're still making tons more than you would if it was unfurnished.
Absolutely. Talking about that too, are you seeing more of like higher end homes popping up on Furnished Finder now, as opposed to, before, when I first started, years ago, it was more of like, apartments and smaller things. Are you seeing like more like luxury style properties popping on there, or is it still kind of?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, you could definitely look at our map, go to your city, and you'll definitely see some beautiful places. But I agree with you. So where maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the 1 or 2 bedroom would have been was perfect for our travelers because, as you know, we're very entrenched in the healthcare space. But since then anyway, over the last 4 or 5 years, our inventory has really brought in a lot of people that are, they could just be relocating, like in the real estate industry. Maybe you sell a property and you're buying a property and you need a place for 3 months, or you're building a house and you need a place for 6 months. It could also be like maybe digital nomads, right? Remote workers, tech workers, educators, students, engineers, contractors, military. So there's so many other people in so many different industries and walks of life that are using us now, that while the trend of healthcare is still increasing. I mean, today is mid-September, right? It's still increasing. But in terms of other types of industries and other travelers using us, yes, it's now to the point of probably 50-50.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing to see what's going on, and just the appetite and the demand for midterm rentals.
Yeah, Brian, I always have people that say like, oh, the nurses were traveling a lot during COVID, and I'm like, no, that's not true. Actually, and I looked at the trajectory from the National Registry of Healthcare Clinicians, and this industry in itself, and just travel medical professionals, it's a $12 billion industry. Like $12 billion. It's enormous. It's not like this small little tiny thing. It's really big. So I think that, and you talked about this on the podcast before, like the travel nursing industry wasn't like this post-pandemic story, although it was spotlighted during COVID.
It was spotlighted, but you're right.
Yeah, there's always been a need for healthcare clinicians. I mean, again, coming from my end, and you worked in healthcare too, like you saw that. And where do you see that going now? Like, where do you see the trajectory of travelers going in that space? Like, not necessarily moving with cities, but like, where do you see that? You continue to see it grow? You think it's going to continue to grow?
For healthcare?
Yeah, for the travels.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, without a doubt, healthcare is going to continue to grow. I mean, the thing about healthcare, it's very cyclical. Obviously, it's a transient population, right? But it's very cyclical to where, maybe as a travel nurse, maybe I do that for 24 months, 36 months, excuse me. Mm-hmm. And but at some point, maybe I settle down, I find a place, and I grow roots so there's always a new population of healthcare travelers coming in. So we're just on the kind of the forefront of that. I mean, but healthcare travel is not a pandemic story. Again, maybe spotlighted, definitely spotlighted through the pandemic. But according to SIA, and I'll have to get the stats, I can't find it right away, but there's consistent, steady growth up through like 2030 projected.
Yep. Yeah, I read those stats from SIA, and there was 5 markets that were really underserved. It was California, New York, Florida, Illinois, and I think Texas were like the 5. They weren't going to meet pre-pandemic level nursing. They were so understaffed that not until 2030 they would actually get the amount of clinicians they needed. And there's more people turning 70 this year than there are turning 20 in the next 3 to 5 years too.
That's really interesting.
So when you have people that are obviously aging, there's more healthcare that's going to need. It's just how our life cycle works, right? So I look at that as far as trajectory. If you have more people turning in their 70s right now than they are in their 20s, like that's a whole other. I mean, anybody that's in business right now, like that's where you should be focusing your energies on how to serve the elderly, because there's going to be such a big, and this is already a big business. So there's such opportunity again in this space, and then to help other people. And I take pride in actually having clinicians stay at the property, and like that's meaningful to me that they're out doing stuff in my community, and we're helping them with a place to stay that's comfortable, safe, and somewhere that they want to be. So like I really enjoy that. So Brian, what's next for Furnished Finder? So what's the future looking like? I mean, you kind of talked about it a second ago. So where else are we going with Furnished Finder?
Yeah, I mean, fantastic question. We are right where we want to be. So we're going to tighten up. We're not presuming to say that we have arrived. I don't think you should ever say something like that. We know that we have a lot of room to grow. We need to get better on a lot of fronts, and we need to connect the dots better. And we know that we have a plan, and so we're really excited about some upcoming launches that are just going to make as a traveler, it's going to put you in front of the properties that you want to faster and sooner, and able to make that connection with you, the landlord, easier. So I mean, that's essentially what we do, right? So we have to improve. We always have to improve on the core business. In addition, we're going to continue to expand our verticals with Keycheck and the products there. We are aggressively looking towards expanding into other geographies, other countries. Wow. So Furnished Finder is going international at some point in the very near future, and we're very excited about that. Other than that, we're still pouring into our core base of travelers, but we're going into different other industries as well to kind of make sure that we are on the tip of the tongue in those other industries as well. Like we just got back from GBTA. That was amazing in San Diego. Mm-hmm. It was amazing to see that travel is rebounding. Corporate travel is increasing again on the trajectory of consistent growth through, I believe, is 2028, if I remember for their slides. So yeah, it's definitely an exciting time for us. The amount of landlords that are joining are amazing, and we're just connecting the dots, trying to connect the dots better and increase our verticals. We're going to be continuing to integrate Keycheck, which is our landlord tools business.
Let's talk about that a bit, Bri, because a lot of people don't realize that Keycheck's a part of that. Can you just give the audience real quick a quick snapshot of what that is? I use Keycheck, and it's such an important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, ultimately, a lot of landlords, they don't know what to do. Okay, once I get a tenant, what do I do now, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what Keycheck does, is it provides them the framework and the path in order to secure that tenant that they just found on Furnished Finder. So we started this company, we built it, but we wanted to keep them, separate, but also under the Furnished Finder umbrella. And essentially, so a landlord says, hey, I need a lease. Great. Go and get a lease. I need to screen a tenant now. Perfect. Perform tenant screening. And we always recommend that everybody does tenant screening regardless of what industry. It's just, you have to, this is your business, right? This is your property. You're scaling. This is your business. Even if it's one property, you have to run it like a business. No exceptions. Just, that's when you will get in trouble, I promise. So always screen everybody every time. It's for the benefit of both parties. But you need to know basic things about, hey, are they paying on time? Are they going through a bankruptcy? Are they going through, have they ever been evicted? What's their credit score? Things like this. I mean, you need to know that information as a landlord ahead of time so you can make the best renting decision possible. Other than that, online rent payment, we do about $1.5 million a month so far in online rent payments, and it's really just kind of the beginning there. So we're excited about kind of putting that into the flow. About 500,000 people every month are connecting with landlords through our system. So, again, back to connecting the dots there. Also, renter's insurance is another product that a lot of landlords have asked for. So we've kind of integrated that into the product flow as well.
Yeah, I love how you guys integrated everything together. Like anything that you need, if you're renting to somebody, you can go the midterm space, you add that person in there, you bring that other part of the payment process, because that's a whole big thing in itself, is having that actual payment done and taken care of, which is a huge part of the whole process.
Yeah, no, I think it serves the purpose, because we don't, we object to being a booking platform where we're going to be making it very expensive for travelers to get in. And that's why we're a no booking direct book site, right? So we're sticking with that model. We believe in that model. We believe that travelers are sick of paying fees. We believe that the booking fees have just been accepted by travelers. Well, I got to pay a booking fee if I want the property. Not really. Like you don't, especially when it comes to midterm rentals. So we're definitely sticking and doubling down on that. But the approach is to kind of make it an a la carte, situation for landlords, where you can here's all the tools that you might need as a landlord. Go ahead and use the ones you would like. If you have a different system that how to onboard your tenants, then great, you can use that too.
I think that's such a great thing, is that you don't have to worry about going to different ancillary sites to take care of things. Like it's all just done on that one spot. And that's one of the questions I get asked all the time, is like, how do I put together a direct booking site? How am I going to have somebody pay? How am I going to, and I'm just like, use Keycheck. Like it's right there. It's literally there. You can screen, you can change the lease terms. You can write your own stuff in there. Like you don't have to just go with what they have. You can add your own kind of addendum in the lease there. You can add anything on there. So, and that's what I love about Keycheck, is you can kind of change things around if you need to. So yeah, I mean, I think that's so awesome that you guys were able to, put that together and allow people to be that one-stop shop. So Brian, I'm going to ask you some questions now about, you kind of talked about Furnished Finder already. You talked about Keycheck. I know we're getting close to the time, so I don't want to take too much of your time up. What do you feel like, what are you working on? What are you personally working on, like in your journey and all this stuff? Is there anything that you're working on in particular?
I'm a husband and dad of 2 boys. So family is incredibly important to me. Married to an amazing woman who is the co-founder of the company. Her name is Lisa. She's also the CFO. She doesn't really love getting on these types of things, although I would love to bring her on. Essentially, anything, we're really heavily involved in our kids' school. They go to a Christian school here in Colorado, and we just absolutely love that community. And I mean, personally, I think a lot of my identity is wrapped up in that school or church, but also, I've hiked 5 14ers this year so far.
Nice.
So that's one. You can choose whichever one you want within 90 minutes, 120 minutes from here. Some even less, like Mount Evans is really nice, and that's only maybe 60 minutes from here. So no, it's exciting, and I was able to take up my son for 14 on his 14th birthday, so that was pretty cool this year as well.
That's super awesome. Yeah, I always love hearing about like what the CEOs are doing behind the scenes and what they're working on and all that stuff too. And you get out in the limelight every now and then. I feel like you have such an incredible story. Thinking about this idea and seeing it firsthand, and you're the you and the other people that you work with obviously are the lifeblood of the agency, and the CEOs are always kind of focused in a lot of things. So I'm always curious on what you're doing, like what you have going on, what your life is like what stresses you out, Brian. What stresses you?
Right. Well, with the amount of customers that we have now, you know, nothing happens fast enough. I'll tell you that. I hear when they email me or when they LinkedIn me or they say, and some of them are frustrated, some of them are thrilled, most of them are thrilled, and going, oh my gosh, you know, so happy to have found you. Or like that one guy, you know, Roberta, hey, just signed a, you know, $250,000 deal thanks to you, thanks a ton, right? So we love hearing that. But I would say what's really frustrating me is that we can't, it takes time to roll things out and to roll things out correct. So it never happens fast enough for the CEO, I'll tell you that. But it's exciting. We have an amazing team, about 25 people full-time in our tech team, and about 75 or 80 in customer service and sales. So amazing people that I'm surrounded by, and my co-founders are simply just fantastic, who bring out the best of me. One of them is my wife, of course, and my brother-in-law, who is just amazing, and such an important part of, I think, this company, even though he wasn't always full-time with it. You know, when you get around some people and they blow you away because they're just so brilliant. Yeah, he's one of them. But also, similar to my wife, doesn't like getting in front of the camera. Not that I love it, but but anyway, I don't know if that answers your question or if I just rambled.
No, it does. I think it definitely does. I think, like I said, going back, I just love seeing CEOs on calls or, you know, talking about things, because again, the company's based off of you're the visionary, right? And then you find all the innovators to come in and create what you see in your head, put it on paper. And I think that's one of the beauties why I love entrepreneurship so much. And in your situation, like, I feel like you're the innovator, like coming up with these ideas and your team and everybody working together. And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs thrive in that atmosphere. And it's just like, and I guess this will kind of be one of the last questions I want to be observant of your time. When you see that kind of stuff, was it hard for you guys to put that together? Like your vision of what Furnished Finder is from, you know, 6-7 years ago to what it is now, was that hard putting it on paper? Was that hard putting it on, you know, together, you know, I guess in a sense?
I mean, yeah, short answer is, yeah, it was super hard. Like I've done a lot of different things in my life, and nothing this hard. I mean, because we basically were bootstrapped. We put our life savings into it, moved to Colorado, and quit the job, moved to Colorado, and went all in. Lived on our savings for, you know, until we were practically bleeding out. So yeah, I would love to say, yeah, it's a breeze, it's a piece of cake, right? But no, it'll test you. And it gets harder after it gets hard. So you definitely, as my friend says, you have to have the intestinal fortitude for it. And I didn't know if I had that or not. But at some point, you're just faced with it and going, okay, you're here. You're in the situation. What are you going to do? Are you going to tuck tail and run? You're going to close up shop? You're going to double down? You're going to do whatever it takes to build your dream, and I just don't want to make it's a team effort. Obviously, I'm not taking hardly any credit for
Right.
for this, because again, I'm surrounded by amazing people, and all I could say is God is good.
Yeah, no, I 100%. And yeah, that all that stuff put together, and you're a very giving person too. A lot of the interviews, and even when you were on my podcast, you know, you give a lot to the community and things like that. And I think in a lot of ways that comes back in so many different ways. And you know, I'm excited to be able to call you like my friend. You know, I connect with you, and I appreciate you for being here, being able to have these conversations. You've been able to allow me, and I hope you take the time to like soak this in for a second. Not only me myself, but there's a lot of other people behind me, Brian, that have built a business off of your platform, and that's how they live and feed their families on a regular basis. So I hope that you can take a moment to just, like, you were able to put that stuff together, and your team, so that people like myself can actually live the lives that we want to live in real estate or as arbitrage, whatever it is. But your platform has allowed people to do that, which is amazing in itself.
Yeah, we're super grateful to have an impact on people. Like however we can have an impact on people, that's truly where we're the happiest. So thank you for saying that, and just congrats, and thank you for teaching and pouring all of what you've learned into your students and other people on your on the AirVenture website. I think that's really important for people that are just wondering what this is or where I should go or what's the next step, or hey, I don't even know what I don't know, right? You're a great source of education in the midterm rental space. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. And one thing too, Brian Furnished Finder has a podcast, and I was thankful to be on there. It's called the Landlord Diaries. We'll leave notes down below so you guys can check that out too. That just started probably about a couple weeks ago, and I just looked at it today, and there's already like thousands of views on it. So you guys are probably growing pretty fast on that end. And I'm excited that you guys are actually doing that. So what it is, everybody, is that landlords that are on Furnished Finder get to actually go on and tell their stories on how they're operating, things they're doing. It's super cool. And these are just like, regular people that built a business just like myself. And that's what they're doing,
Right.
Either as a side hustle or as a full-on business.
Yeah, we wanted to tell those stories. I mean, we were able to get a lot of those stories, and we just said, we have to get these out. We have to get these out. I mean, I know we focus a lot on the travelers, but those stories were so impactful. So there's more to come. People, landlords that are very motivated and doing very well are in line to get on to Landlord Diaries. So check it out. We're going to have a constant flow of new landlords and new people coming in there. But thank you for, I think, being our first host. So that's amazing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and thanks for thinking of me. And everybody listening, check out Brian. Make sure you go to Furnished Finder, check out Mashvisor, go to the Landlord Diaries. I'm going to put all the notes down on the bottom. Brian, I appreciate you. I'm super thankful that you were able to spend the time to talk with me today, and I think our audience is going to get some real insight and value and learn about you and the future of Furnished Finder. So again, I appreciate you so much and everything that you've done for me, other investors in the space, the tenants that come in. Super grateful and thankful. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate you. Take care, and good luck, everybody.